Jerry Brown here with Jerry Brown Travels.
Lori here.
I am scared of dying alone. This was the opening that I had with Sandra. This was a phone consultation, and she opened up with this. I'm scared of dying alone, Jerry. And I was set back. I didn't know what to say. So I asked her, I says, well, could you give me a little more information? She said that she was married for 40 years and that her husband and her were in the medical profession and that they had traveled around the world extensively. And most of the time they were out of country, that they were in hospitals and countries where they needed American doctors and that type of medical care. And so that was their profession. And so they spent a lot of time traveling. She says, I do not have any children. We did not decide to have children. And I don't have any siblings. I really feel alone and I feel really depressed. And I'm not doing this mourning process very well, she explained to me. And so I took a big breath because, of course, I've never been asked questions like that. You know, I get questions that are like, you know, how do you get a visa in Mexico, or how do you get a bank account in Mexico? You know, where's the best place to live in Mexico? Is it safe living in Mexico? You know, can I buy real estate in Mexico? These are questions that I typically go through with people in my phone consultation. And so when she hit me with that, and I said, you know, Sandra, I've got to be 100% honest with you. I don't have any experience with that. Women do not confide in me, you know, what their love life is. And the sadness maybe that they're feeling, and if they're lonely here in Mexico, I don't get that input. But what I notice with Lori and her women, you know, they get together and they actually, it's interesting, they make these plans. If somebody's husband dies or something like that, why don't we get a home, a big home, and then we can share expenses, you know, and live together, you know, and create a good life. And so what I have noticed, Sandra, is that here in Mexico, the women seem to be very close. There are a lot of single women here, and there are a lot of single men also. And the women get very close, and they have support groups, and they help each other out. And I think, Sandra, in those situations, you're going to get much more of a benefit finding out some of these platforms out there, maybe that are designed for single women that are living in this area, and make a friend or two. And so eventually you can have private, you know, conversations with them, and you can ask that question. They're going to be able to give you more information than I can give you, because again, I don't have any experience in that area living here in Mexico. We have 6 couples that we know that did find their soulmates here in Mexico, and they were, you know, got together, got married. Even so, they were, you know, in their 60s and 70s, and so they were able to work out a nice arrangement. And so I was saying to Sandra, you know, I says, that is a possibility, because again, we do know some people that it has worked here for them. And so I was just so surprised that she was so open with me, you know, and just came out. And I felt really quite privileged that she could trust me and even ask that question. And so what do you think out there? What would you suggest that Sandra would do? What advice would you give her? She also mentioned that because they did spend so much time out of the country, you know, 3, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, stuff like that, they didn't really cultivate friendships over the years, and without having any family members or children and stuff like that to fall back on. Now she is alone and feels quite lonely, you know, going through the transition of losing a loved one for 40 years. And that's a tough one. That is really a tough one. And I guess the old thing is, you don't know unless it happens to you, and how you walk through that. You know, maybe you have an experience of, you know, going through something like that, or maybe a friend or stuff that has suffered loss. what advice would you give Sandra? How long, does this process take to get over the mourning process of losing someone? And what advice would you give her? Also, I mentioned to Sandra, I says, there are a lot of foreigners that live here, Canadians, Americans, Australians, or people from Europe. And so there are a lot of, people, I guess, to, have a common denominator being in an expat community. And maybe it would be a time for her to come down and get a sense of if this area feels comfortable for her, and give it some time. She indicated that she really didn't have any homes or any material things that she really was attached to, and that she could come down. And I said, hey, why don't you come down for 6 months. Don't worry about getting a temporary or a permanent visa. Come down and see if Mexico feels right for you. And maybe then you'll be able to get up with some meetup groups and be able to meet people here and see how that is going for you. And maybe just even being in another country or being around people here maybe will help that mourning process, that will help you to not feel so lonely, because there are a lot of good support groups of women here, and I know that you'll find a good one here. So, Sandra, my recommendation to you, again, come down for, if you can, 6 months, that would be great. If you come down only for a month or two, that'll work too. But the longer you could come down, the better, experience you'll have, and then you'll see if Mexico is right for you. I was so touched that she felt comfortable with me, that she could ask such an open, vulnerable question, about her being lonely. And that was quite, I guess it made me feel really good. And that somebody could trust me, never really met me, saw us on videos and stuff like that, and felt that she could, maybe get the right answer. I don't know if I answered her correctly or anything like that, but maybe you can help by also, please make a comment for Sandra. Well, that was my little wrap up on this phone consultation I had, and I thought it would be interest to you, and I really wanted to share it with you right away. If you're interested and have a private phone consultation with me, at the end of the video, at the bottom left, you'll see a box that comes up, says book now. Click on it. Thank you. Also, we do have a video every Friday at 5 p.m. California time, and look forward to that, and we will share more videos with you.
Please subscribe, thumb up, or make a comment, or press like it. So that encourages us to make more video for you to see it. And thank you very much, and appreciate that.